Theme 3: Two kinds of political leadership. Now, what we have covered so far deals with a particular kind of king who is usually the lion, and his ministers are usually from another species, such as a tiger or a panther or a crow, and most importantly, the jackal. So, this government consists of animals belonging to different jatis, some of which, like the lion and tiger, are superior, and others, like the jackal and crow, are inferior. The Lion King is superior to his retainers or the Parijana not just by degree but in quality. The other animals cannot even imagine taking the place of the lion. He is so much higher than them. So he is a leader, not just because he is strong and brave and capable, but mainly because of his noble birth. It is not that he does great things which make him a king. He just exudes supremacy and power. Swayameva Mrugendrata. Kingship is sui generis. And so we have stories in which the lion becomes paralyzed, usually while fighting an elephant, but his closest retainers do not abandon him. In fact, in one of the stories, the jackal tells the lion that if he does not kill the camel who has taken refuge with them, then he will surely die, and they, that is, the other retainers, the jackal, the crow, the leopard, they would follow him in the funeral pyre. So that is the kind of kingship represented by the lion. He is the Samrat or emperor, and his kingdom is the Samrajya or empire. Now, as I said, the retainers or the parivar of the lion consists of animals belonging to different jatis. But what is common to them all is that they are all meat eaters, and that is symbolic of persons who are aggressive and dominant, who are greedy and ambitious, who seek a lavish and grand lifestyle. Usually, the government, that is, the king and his ministers, are such kind of people. They sustain that lifestyle by taxing their own subjects or conquering other territories. In this government full of meat eaters, there enters a grass eater, usually a bull or a camel, and that kind of upsets the balance because their influence over the king tends to shift the policies of the government to be more compassionate, to patronize learning and the arts. So, grass eater tends to symbolize a member of the civil society, and that is an important theme that plays out in this kind of Samrajya politics. We have already spoken of the tension between state and society, and that is very nicely brought out in terms of the conflict between meat eaters and grass eaters that you see in some of the stories of the Panchatantra. The other kind of political setup that we find in the stories of the Panchatantra is of animals belonging to the same jati. And in ancient India, you had ganas or sanghas, that is, clans. The Arthashastra speaks of Shastropajivi or Ayudhajivi ganas, that is, martial clans. And the leader of the clan is the Ganapati or Sanghapati. In the Ganarajya or Sangharajya, we find a different kind of politics. This you will find in stories about a group of elephants or mice or pigeons or frogs or crows or owls, that is, animals belonging to the same jati. Unlike the Samrat, whose position arises from his naturally splendid qualities, the Ganapati remains in power only as far as he is able to satisfy the needs of his parivar or retinue. The moment he fails, he is out. His followers will abandon him. So we see this in the second Tantra. Hiranya the mouse owns a treasury that symbolizes the importance of treasury or kosher to the king. Because of this kosher, he is able to jump much higher than the other mice, and so he is able to procure food for his parivar, and that is what makes him king. But later, a pair of monks confiscate his treasury, and then he is unable to jump up high, unable to procure food. Immediately, his followers abandon him. But the Ganpati nonetheless cares for his parivara. The lion does not care for his parivara. His status is way above them. But the Ganpati does not bear any ill will towards his parivara, though they do not show him any loyalty or respect. So in this case, Hiranya is disappointed with his Jati Bandhavas, his clan brethren. When he was rich and strong, they were with him and gaining advantage from him. But when he becomes poor and weak, they start abusing him. But he doesn't fight them. He quietly retires to the forest as a hermit. But you also have stories of the bad Ganapati that you find in stories of the frogs and the serpent. There are a couple of these stories, one in which the frog chief invites a serpent into his well to eliminate his rivals. And the serpent, as you know, devours the rivals first and then eats the family of the frog chief as well. Then you have another story in which the serpent gives a ride to the frogs on his back, with the frog chief sitting on his head. Then the serpent says that he's too weak and he's unable to find any food. So the frog chief allows him to eat some of the frogs, and one after the other, the serpent eats up all the frogs. So these are stories of bad Ganapatis, who instead of attending to the welfare of their Gana, end up destroying their own Gana for personal profit. These are stories of Gana politics, and the most important of them all, I think, is the crows and owls. This is a story of the feud between two clans that goes on over many generations till the crows ultimately destroy the owls. One of the lessons it teaches is that in a kinship based society, where people are organized into clans or jatis, control over speech is very important. So, in this story, a crow publicly humiliates an owl, and that is what sparks off the feud between them. This is because in a clannish society, the insult of one person is the insult of the whole community. And there is a very nice shloka, Rohati Sayaka Viddham Vanam Parashuna Hatam Vacha Duruktam Bibhatsam Na Prarohati Vakrutam. A forest pierced by arrows or mowed down by the axe grows anew, but what has been undone by offensive and barbaric speech does not rise again. In the Ashokan edicts also, we find Vachagopti, control over speech, as a rule made for social harmony. So, today in modern India, we talk about freedom of speech, and that is possible because we are all equal citizens of a modern state. But bear in mind that we are dealing with a kinship based culture which for many, many centuries has considered constraint over speech as the basis for social harmony. Theme 4, Political Narratives. Now, I just want to switch tack a bit and discuss what does it mean to talk about political thought in the form of narratives. The Panchatantra has plenty of shlokas on the duties of kings, building forts, the four expedients, Samadana, Dandabheda, the six expedients or the Shadgunyam, Sandhi, Vigraha, Yana, Asana, Saushraya, Dvaidibhava, and so on. In this form, it is similar to the Arthashastra or Manusmriti, which give a series of political instructions to kings. But the uniqueness of the Panchatantra is its narratives. And the narratives are not just containers in which instructions are embedded. I mean, political studies is boring, right? Well, to some people, like the three dim-witted princes to whom Vishnu Sharma narrates the Panchatantra, politics is a boring subject. But it's not that Vishnu Sharma thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll tell them a story to hold their attention, and suddenly in the middle of it, I will include some political instructions, and they will learn in spite of themselves. That's not how the Panchatantra works. The politics is in the narrative itself, and what the Panchatantra is doing is exploiting the power of the narrative to convey its political lessons. And what is the power of the narrative? It is its quality of evoking rasa in the listener. And rasa is experience, right? It is taste, it is relish. And thus the Panchatantra is teaching politics as a lived experience. So, if you were a teacher of politics in contemporary India, you could, for example, outline the theory of democracy and explain its institutions and how they function. But then there is also democracy as a lived experience of the Indian people. The housewife, the bank manager, the taxi driver, the farmer, the politician, they are all living this democracy. So, what does it mean to them? How do they participate in it? Do they gain any advantage from it, or do they try to run away from it? If you can collect their stories, then that compilation as a text on Indian democracy would be akin to what the Panchatantra did in ancient India. That is what is so wonderful about this text. It does not just teach politics, it gives you the rasa, a taste of what it means to live in politics, that is, in the political world of ancient India. So you have the lion and the jackal as king and minister in the government, and persons from the civil society, the bull or the camel or the hare, and you share their experience through these stories, their pain, their conflicts, their struggles, and you get a taste of what it means to be a political animal, to be a part of a political world. And the Panchatantra is truly a masterpiece in that sense. The range of political emotions it has expressed through its narratives is simply amazing. Theme 5, Limitations of the Panchatantra. So while we have the Panchatantra and the other Niti Shastras and Artha Shastras, it is important to understand that India does not have a tradition of political philosophy like we find in the West. What do I mean by that? So politics is everywhere because everywhere human beings have conflicting interests, and politics is about managing conflicting interests. But there are two ways to do it. One is by accepting the givenness of the situation. So we can say that nature has made us unequal. Someone is stronger, someone is weaker. There is nothing we can do about that. But then the strong will oppress the weak, and the weak will deceive the strong, and you will get a society that is full of misery and strife. So, what we can do is while maintaining the hierarchy, which is natural and about which we can do nothing, we can teach the strong that it is their dharma to protect and nurture the weak, and teach the weak that it is their dharma to respect and obey the strong. We can teach the strong to safeguard against the deception of the weak, and teach the weak to resist the oppression by the strong through a variety of means: buddhi, that is strategic thinking, which we find in the crows and serpent story, or upay, tactical thinking, which we find in the lion and hare, or mahajana virod, mass agitation, which we find in the lapwing and the ocean, and so on and so forth. And we can teach the strong that it behooves them to show mercy towards the weak, and we can teach the weak that it behooves them to seek justice against the oppression of the strong. So, in all the Panchatantra stories, we find that the weak do triumph over the strong. But the important point we must bear in mind is that in the end, nothing changes structurally. The contradiction between predator and prey is never resolved. The strong remain strong and the weak remain weak. It is within the constraints of social hierarchy that the Panchatantra seeks to build a decent society. The other kind of politics is one in which we do not accept the givenness of our condition. We choose not to live in nature and how nature has made us, but we imagine over and above us all a law to which we are all of us subservient, which we will collectively uphold, and that law will make everything right for us. How do we understand this law? That is through reason in philosophy and through revelation in religion. And that is what you find in the Western tradition of political philosophy. And it is from that kind of thinking that the modern state has emerged, and which the British established in India, and what we have inherited as the modern Indian nation state. So I will end on that note and leave it to you, brilliant students of political science, that you will find a way to harmonize between the modern Indian state based on Western political philosophy and the traditional Indian people who are used to a kinship based politics. Thank you.